This video is a little bit different. I want to share my thoughts about niching in L&D. Okay, so yeah, this video is going to be a little bit different. Generally speaking, I try and have sort of like a thing to talk about, or a thing that we're doing, so it's kind of like a tutorial or a step-by-step. This is a bit more of a kind of, Tom's general ramblings. I don't know, maybe that's what we'll call it, I don't know. So do let me know if this is the kind of thing you want to see on the channel. If you don't want to see it on the channel, let me know that too, pop it down in the comments. I'm really keen to make sure that the stuff going up here is of value to someone. So give me some feedback, let me know. But I really wanted to share just a few quick thoughts around something I think it's been around for a while, and certainly I came across it a little while ago from really interesting people. And that's the concept of niching in your L&D career. And when we talk about this, we're kind of talking in the same term as kind of the marketing world does, where you try and focus down your target audience to a really specific group of people that you can then market yourself to. So for example, you kind of hear things in L&D about, well, rather than just being an instructional designer, let's say you're an instructional designer for the pharmaceutical industry, or an instructional designer for data compliance or cybersecurity, or different either different topics or different kind of industries. So you work with the IT industry, or you work with systems training only, or this kind of thing. And for a long time, I kind of thought, oh, this is quite interesting actually. Is this a way of being more targeted in how you market yourself, either as a freelancer, a small business, someone looking for a job? But I thought I'd share sort of my current feelings on it from, as I now describe myself, an unapologetic generalist. So just to start with, let's have a look at those two terms side by side. So you've got niching, which I've kind of just described, and then you've got what I would describe myself as, which is a generalist. Now, a generalist doesn't have any of those things that we just spoke about within the world of niching. As a generalist, if someone asks me, I work in learning and development. Mostly I work with corporate clients, but I also work with non-profits. I also work with education partners such as universities and schools. Pretty much if it's learning and development, or learning or development, or something akin to that, I'll do it if it's something that I want to do. Of more interest to me, rather than what's the industry and what's the topic, is what's the challenge to overcome. And for me, that kind of is the first issue I have with niching, is that you lose the variety of challenge. For me, part of the joy of working in L&D is that I can go from working on data compliance to systems training, and then maybe to something about mental health or well-being, and then maybe something about something completely different. That variety challenges me constantly. It forces me to think in different ways and approach problems differently. It makes me speak to different types of people, both in terms of SMEs and in terms of audience interview. That's, for me anyway, had a really positive impact on my broader approach. And what I learned when doing data compliance, I can somewhat apply to things to do with well-being, and I can somewhat apply to systems training, and you can take things with you wherever you go. And I just feel like if I had niched down, if I'd have said I only work in the data compliance world, I would have missed out on so much broader understanding, not just in the world of L&D, but of other people. Another really key thing that I enjoy about being a generalist is that I get to do lots of different cool stuff. So I get to do needs analysis and speak to SMEs, I get to do action mapping, but I also get to do scripting and storyboarding. I also get to do some visual design, sourcing of materials, I get to do video editing and audio production, I get to do content development, I get to do data collection and analysis. And this is where I can kind of see both sides of the coin. I love that kind of breadth. And there's this concept called the Expert Generalist. Now, those of you who know me know I hate the word expert when someone applies it to themselves. I don't consider myself to be an expert generalist, but it's a really interesting sort of concept in the world of learning. And the basic idea is this is someone who, whenever they come across something new, they want to learn more about it. So the two kind of key characteristics, or there's three, but the two that you kind of focus on initially are the idea that you're very open to new experiences. You almost crave something new coming along quite often. And when you find a new experience, you want to learn deeply about it. You want to go off and research it and learn more and understand how it connects to other skills either that you have or that you don't have yet. And that in turn makes you look for another opportunity to gain this other kind of peripheral skill that might connect that to what you're doing and all these different things. There's almost a need to research something once you've experienced it in order to really understand it fully. And the desire to have that broader, almost like what you might call casual understanding of something. Now, the flip side of that is that the expert generalist is the person who will sometimes let something go. If it's a task they do regularly, all the time, they're far more likely to let that slip to go to something new than finish that first. And that's where the challenge is to me in being a generalist, is there's always something new and exciting to learn, whether it's AR and VR and that kind of new world of tech coming in, whether it's the latest authoring tool, whether it's a new model for designing content, whether it's a new approach to handling SMEs or whatever it might be. There's always something new to learn, and the challenge as a generalist is how many things can you learn before actually you're no longer learning deeply about lots of different things, you're just skimming the surface of everything. And to me, that's the difference between this concept of, jack of all trades versus an actual generalist. Because as a generalist, I don't do everything. I just do a fairly broad kind of collection of things. And I have a decent understanding, a functioning casual knowledge of a lot of things, as opposed to being hyper focused and kind of niched into, I am the expert in insert topic or area of expertise here. As a generalist, I prefer having that very broad understanding of lots of different things, and maybe I can do 3 of 10. But I've got a good enough understanding of the other 7 to be able to say, well, this is how we want to use it, and this is what we want it to be, and these are the skills we need to find in order to make that happen. Generalists don't have to do everything, they just have that broader understanding. The flip side of all of that is that niched expert who is an absolute expert in one thing, in delivering something perfectly every time, reliably, and I totally see the appeal of that. The downside of it, and this is what really drives me now to be, an unapologetic generalist, because for a long time I kind of felt like, should I be a generalist? Am I doing the wrong thing here? Should I be niching? Will that stop me ever really being great at what I do? Here's kind of the thing that threw me into becoming an unapologetic generalist. Niching in L&D. L&D is already pretty niche. Like, I already have to describe to people and really try hard to explain to people, first of all, what the heck an instructional designer is. In that it's not a graphic designer, it's not just e-learning, no, it's not PowerPoint, no, I don't jazz things up for a living. It's not a field that, let's face it, is that common already. And then even L&D as a broad industry is pretty niche. Let's face it, HR would be considered a niche within most businesses. Well, quite often L&D is a lot smaller than HR, rightly or wrongly. In many companies, it's still a division of HR, as opposed to its own freestanding function. I just feel like by niching, you give up so much of the expanse that is L&D. It's huge when you're in it, but from the outside, it's already pretty niche in of itself. Now, this is only my opinion, there's no right or wrong. If you've niched, I'd love to hear from you and find out kind of, what that process was like, what led you down that path, and how's it working out for you. If you're as I am, an unapologetic generalist, I'd love to hear from you too. What drove you down that path? What do you do in order to keep adding to that breadth of knowledge as well? And if you're looking into the L&D world, if you're joining, if you're just starting out, this isn't a question you have to answer on day one. This isn't like, do you want to work in L&D? Because you can have an amazing career if you niche, or if you're a generalist, or if you find your another path completely. That's awesome too. But it is worth thinking about what you want from your L&D career. It's worth considering, do you want to be that kind of pinnacle of expertise in one very specific thing? Or do you want the variety that being a generalist gives you and therefore need to develop that breadth of knowledge? There are a lot of considerations there, too many to kind of go into, and a lot of them are really personal, I'd say, in terms of what you want from your career. But get in touch in the comments, drop me an email. I'd love to have a chat about this debate, because I think it's really, really interesting. I hope you found this video interesting or helpful, maybe. If you did, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what was actually good about it. As I said, this is a new kind of video for this channel. It's not something I've really done before. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button and tell me what was wrong with it. If you just don't want opinion pieces on here, that's cool too. I want to create content that's helpful. Either way, I would love it if you could subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps me out and allows us to spread these ID tips far and wide.